putting the fence up. I just wanna make sure our study, Sonali, is inclusive and has that, and it's not looked at from the higher income, but we make sure we have just a good representative study. And then I also like to see, Zach, from the enforcement standpoint, how many of the lower resource folks are pending in our court system, how many may be locked up already, may be waiting on the court case to be heard, and what is the reasoning behind why we're in this situation. So I hadn't seen the study, I don't know who's conducting it, I hadn't seen who's working on it, but when we get to that point, Sonali, if you can, just share, we can come back before ops, Madam Chair, if we can, just to share before we launch the study, what are we looking at, what are the outcomes, what is the data points, what is the, just some of the capacity building.
No, we understand that. I mean, that's what we're calling our solutions, common sense solutions.
Great, thank you.
One of our recommendations is to provide support to families and their pets in need through targeted pop-up clinics, resource centers, that sort of stuff, which is why we have those heat maps to show that these are the areas where we wanna have more resources available to.
Right.
So that we're preventing those animals from coming into the shelter unnecessarily. You asked the question about how many of these open court cases, how many of these people are locked up. Majority of the animal court cases, these are ordinance violations. These are not felony cases.
Do they have to pay a fine if they get found guilty?
If they're found guilty, they can pay the fine. I mean, it's usually.
They can't be afford to lock up. You can't, we lock them up, they can't go work and provide for their family. So is it a fee, a fine if they?
It's usually a fine if you're found guilty. It's usually a negotiated plea, but usually you have community service that you can perform instead of paying the fine. I mean, I attend the court usually twice a week in magistrate court, so I see this often. I mean, it's most of these cases are happening in magistrate court. These are not felony cases. No one is going to jail for this because you were concerned about that.
I got you. I'm just trying to see if it's a fee or a fine that they have to pay if we're dealing with a low resource community. If they can't pay the fine or fee, what happens to them?
They perform community service. Which,
do they do it during their work hours, or they have to do it after hours? Because a lot of them are still trying to make ends meet. So how do we?
I mean, it's a program that is, I mean, it's something that magistrate court does regularly, and not just for animal cases, for all cases.
I think that.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, I think that I'm gonna call on you, and then we're gonna cut it off, because I think that we really need to come back and speak, and we probably need the magistrate court here to also answer questions so that we can get a holistic view of what's happening. Because I mean, you say you don't go to jail. Well, if you don't come to court, is there one issue that you go to jail?
Not really, not until you.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that that's something that the court can answer. I'm a lawyer, and you may or may not, depend upon the circumstances, but I'm not gonna speak for the court. So I would like to have another hearing so that the court is here and whomever else may need to be here, that we can discuss questions so it can be holistic. And I look forward to the study, because I think that that's going to tell us a lot also. So Commissioner Cochran, Johnson, and we're coming back to this, Commissioner Terry.
I will be brief. I am the mother of 2 fur babies. I've read the emails, I understand the concerns, and honestly, we couldn't have a better animal advisory board. One of the things that I really want us, because we can do what is within our wheelhouse, and the data gives really clear indications of some actions that could be taken, in my personal opinion. It is amazing to me that we are spending $39 per day to house animals. We spend $55 per day to house human beings in prisons, and that equates to about $19,777 on an annual basis. We have got to revise, in my opinion, two things that we should take a quick look at based upon the data. And I want to defer this because of course I'm one of 7 and we have to be empirical based, but there's, in my opinion, a clear line here. One of the things is education, access to spay, neuter, etc., to hopefully cut down on animal population. But also, animals as evidence. If we could immediately begin to eradicate this period of time, 360 days, we would immediately free up space. I think what we have to do is do what's obvious first, and then set about determining what the need is after we potentially eliminate a major factor for what we see. Now, things that I've seen may be debatable, and that's where I defer because I've had the conversation with Attorney Ernst, that up to 1/3 of what we have, the current animals that are housed, are animals for evidence. And this is something that I believe we need to bring the courts in. I agree with Commissioner Davis Johnson as the chair, because we have the capacity and the ability to make the laws. So I think it is time we immediately speak upon it. Otherwise, of course, I rest with the Committee of Jurisdiction, but to each and every one of you, this is very compelling. It's nothing that we do not know, but I just commend you for caring enough to go this far, and now it's time, I think, for us to go further. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to say that we are addressing it, and we will continue to address it. And resolution was brought forth from the Arts Committee that we're about to get a motion on. So, I have pets. My dog just had cancer, and we had to pay thousands of dollars for chemo. So I'm a pet lover, and my dog sadly died. But, so I understand what you're saying, and I empathize for what you're saying, but I want you all to know that you have a committee that is listening, that is supportive, and that we will come back to get a holistic resolution to this issue. So thank you all for coming. Thank you all for coming back, because I know you're gonna come back. And I just love my appointee, and that's the reason I appointed her, because I knew the passion that she had. So I want you to know that the county is understanding, and that we're gonna do what we can do in this area. So with that said, we have a motion. And we're gonna schedule I said that we're going to come back and discuss it, because I said that she would be the last speaker.
I didn't get a chance to say anything.
Well, you will.
So we're not voting on this
Not
today?
No,
Well, then I
this
gotta
is
say
just
something.
the resolution.
Yeah, we're about to vote on the resolution.
We're about to vote on the resolution. Okay.
Okay, we're gonna vote on this resolution today.
Right.
Yeah, as soon as we can get a motion.
Okay,
made.
but I've got a question about it.
Okay, let's question.
Let's make the motion
Let's
first.
take the motion, and then you can ask your question. Thank you all.
I make a motion to approve 23-0758, resolution in support of Dekalb citizens and their pets, facility and service expansion, and prevention of more homeless pets.
I second that motion.
Okay, there's a question.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. So I just want to be clear about the resolution and what we're doing here, because we in the past have done these urging resolutions, and we have waited months, if not years, for action to be taken. And I appreciate that this committee is now acknowledging that this is an issue and we're drawing our attention to it. But there are some of us up here who have been drawing our attention to it for 2 years now. And so I'm glad we finally have gotten to this moment where we can all, as a commission, say that we think that there's a problem and we're committed to it. But earlier you mentioned that there would be a study. And when I hear a study, I think, well, that means procurement has to go do an RFP, and then they have to do bidding, and then 6 months later we'll have a vendor, and then the study will take a year to do, and so that's, you know, potentially a 2-year window. So I guess in terms of maybe if we could just acknowledge the steps by the time we come back to the BOC, what the therefore be it resolved sections are actually and are saying, and what the timeline is. Because it's great that we say we support something, and we want to support identifying something, and we urge doing something, but I'm looking for the actual timeline, the actual plan, and the steps that we can take immediately before saying we're going to do this study to consider something in the future down the line. Because this is an emergency now, it has been for 2 years. And so if we could just get some level of response, because it seems like most of this is asking the administration to tell us what to do as opposed to us indicating what we're going to do.
Okay, I'm gonna address just one item of that, and that is the new animal shelter was built before 2 years. It's been more than 2 years ago, and it was brought to the attention of the Board of Commissioners who voted to spend the $11 million for the new animal shelter. And then this has been brought up. This concern has been, so it's not like we're just now addressing the concerns of our pets in Dekalb County. This is a different aspect. Everything evolves.
Well, you didn't know it was at capacity from the very first day it opened? Because that's what the timeline says.
Well, now,
it's been at capacity and above capacity since the very day that it opened.
and that's the reason that I stated that we will bring everyone here
Okay, well, it's taken
to
7 years to get
ask
there.
questions, to move forward. It may not be in your time frame, but it'll be in a reasonable time.
Well, what is the time frame?
Yeah,
It doesn't say in the
So-
resolution.
yeah. That's another step. Yeah,
Let's go.
okay.
Commissioner Terry, we understand your concerns regarding the timeline, and thank you very much for voicing your opinion about that. And I also want to thank my colleagues, and we're lucky enough to actually have all of us, all 7 commissioners up here today, to have been able to participate and ask questions, review the presentation, your very thorough, data-informed presentation. Commissioner Davis Johnson, as the chair, thank you very much for expediting this presentation onto our agenda, because Commissioner Davis Johnson does believe that this is a problem, that this is a challenge. And I will just assure you that all of us on this committee are invested in solving the immediate, mid, and long-term needs of our animal shelter, but also animal service problems that we have. The creative, common sense solutions that you've provided to us are excellent, and they're spot on. So I just want to say that myself and my office will continue to work with the administration around the solving the immediate needs, and also putting together a timeline, at least one that we can use as a roadmap so we can get to those long-term solutions. But I do want to echo my comments earlier, is that I am very grateful to see O.O. Williams and Nicole for taking time out of your schedules to go and tour the Animal Services facility with me and my Chief of Staff, Caroline Enlow. And when we were there, I just want everyone to know, is that we walked in the door and we're immediately just going, oh, what about this? What about that? And we had great staff there with Lifeline to respond to those questions. So commissioners, we're in a good place, and today we're here to vote on passing this resolution, or at least getting it to the BOC to formally pass it. So my motion stands that we approve 0758.
Yes, I'll second. I have just one comment just to make, and I think it's important to some holdover from the last board who approved the $11 million animal shelter. I just want us to put in perspective where we were in 2013, which wasn't a pandemic, but we were just in the Great Recession. So the money that the county had at the time, we had only probably about $7 million in the bank. That's how bad it was in this county. So when we made the courageous decision to move us from a shelter that was just deplorable, and Sonali and Susan will tell you that, to move it to where we are now in Chamblee was just a big, big improvement. And so we had to do something with a sense of urgency to do it. And so that don't mean we was correct or trying to get everything right, but we knew we had to get those animals out of that place and put them in a new home, a better home, an air-conditioned home, a home where they all had individual rooms. So I just always, easy to look back and say what we coulda, shoulda, woulda. But if you were at that time sitting on this board, it was not a glorious time because it was a very dim and grim time financially and just a lot was going on. So, but we did the best we can, and this is where we are now. And so with this resolution that we have, and with the fantastic recommendations been made, now we have a path that we can move forward on. And so that's what we need to look for in the future and what we can do. So thank you, Madam Chair, for your leadership. And thank you, Commissioner Long Spears, for bringing this forward. And we just we deal with the hands we have now, and we can look at some good solutions. And I'm glad that I second this motion. I'm glad we're bringing it forward. And this is not the end. This is just the beginning.
Okay, so, all of those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Okay, with that, is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
So moved.